Before, I left all the bolts in the plenum, so they were in their little homes. Today I'm going to show you another trick before I get to cleaning all the grease off and prepping the surface for paint. And I'll show you guys what kind of paint to use and all that good stuff. So here we have a piece of cardboard. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut little holes so I can stick the corresponding bolt into that hole. So for example, if I was to have something that was square, it had 4 corners to it, 4 bolts in each corner, poke a hole here, poke a hole here, poke a hole here, and poke a hole here, drop the bolts in. This also helps if, let's say the plenum is about this big, I can shrink it down a little bit and I'll still have the right orientation for the bolts and keep them in the right spot. So one of the things that I'm going to do, foremost, I'm going to write on my cardboard top. So I know that this part of the plenum, where the throttle body goes, is the top. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to take a screwdriver or anything that you can punch a hole with, and I'm going to make the top holes. I'm going to start at the top, just because that's easier. And I don't know how well you guys can see this, but I have 3 bolts right up here towards the top. 1, 2, and 3. In about that configuration right there. This one was a hold down bolt rather than an actual plenum bolt for a wiring harness or whatever. There's one there. Now, as you can see, that's the orientation. I have the 3 there. I have 1 further down to the left here. So I'm going to go further down to the left here. Put 1 in that hole. I'm just going to keep going around in the orientation of the way everything is. So here's 1 that was bottom there. Down, down. It's not going to and then here is the bottom. You have 6 screws there. I think we can use how they are, so let's see if we can use that again. So I'm also going to have to take off the throttle body here. It looks like this hose at the bottom is going to have to come off too to prep it for paint. And we're looking at an Allen key for this. Let's see what size we got. Got a whole brand new pack of them. Might as well open them up, Rick. So I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to say 3.5 mil. Nope. It is a... Oh, that is very poorly organized. This is a 5mm Allen key. With the bolts right here on the throttle body. I'm going to set this down so it's going to be a little easier for me. Might be a little harder for y'all to see, but those are in there very tight. Alright, so this one was giving me a little bit of an issue. I can't quite crank on it like that enough. So I'm going to show you a trick using a wrench. Take the box end, put it over it, and now you have a lot more leverage. There it goes. Easy as that. And then there should be 2 on the back side here. Alright, now that we got our throttle body off of our plenum, the last thing we got to do is get this last hose off before we can actually start prepping our surface. So got a pair of pliers here, like every other band clamp we've done. Gonna squeeze it, pull that back. Just put it right there. Don't try and take it off. Just leave it right there. Get it out of the way. And pull that off like so. Alright, so next thing we're going to be doing is prepping the surface. First I'm going to use a degreaser. I'm going to use a degreaser. You can use a wire brush or a nylon brush. Probably going to end up using maybe a toothbrush or something to get down in these small areas where a brush isn't going to be able to get to, but you want this as clean as possible. If you don't get it as clean as possible, paint's not going to stick to it, nothing's going to stick to it, and it's going to look like trash. Alright, so now I got my painter's tape that I'm going to use. You can use masking tape, you can use duct tape, you can use anything of those sorts that's going to keep a barrier from that spray to actually stick onto a surface that you don't want it to. Painter's tape is painter's tape for a reason. It's got really nice sharp edges, it tears easy, and it doesn't stick to the surface and leave behind residues and stuff like that. That's why it's best to use painter's tape. If you don't have painter's tape, don't worry too much about it, but it's best to use painter's tape. If you're going to the store and you're looking for supplies, get painter's tape. It'll save you the heartache. So we're going to mask off our surfaces that we don't want paint to get into or onto. I'm going to start with this right here, so you get the idea. We have another hose spot right here on the left. Let's see if I can get a better angle for you guys. When I do round things, valve stems on wheels, anything like that, I take a straight piece like this, I put it to where it's flush, where the straight edge is against what's going to be painted, but still on the object that's not going to be painted, and wrap it around once. Doesn't need to be all that pretty, and then I'm going to wrap around from the other side, and just make sure that's tight, and then you can just squeeze the edge to where it won't get in from the side. We have a few other hose spots. I'll show you that again. Up here, put the flat edge against the surface that you don't want paint, or that you want painted. You're going to wrap it around. This one's going to give me a little bit of an issue because it's against the plenum right there. I went in the other direction, but I think you get the idea. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to squeeze it so that not even any spray particles can get in there. Any bit of spray paint's not going to go get sucked into that area. It's very unlikely, but you know, anything's possible. Alright, so last thing we're going to do, some of you guys may have been rolling over in your grave thinking I'm about to spray right here, which I am. But, leads me to my next point. Mask off anything in the near areas that can get paint on it. I don't want my Z to be the color of what I'm going to paint the plenum. I don't want my wheels, my tires, my creeper, anything like that. Alright, so now that we have everything masked off, that's so far away that I'm not worried about any overspray getting on it. Now that we have all our valuables masked off, I'm going to go over paints. So, as you know, your plenum is not, it's not a block, it's not anything that's going to get super hot, but it is going to heat up. A lot of paints, if you want to get your 99-cent of black paint from Walmart, it's going to heat up, it's going to flake, it's going to chip, it's going to crack, and it's not going to look good, guys. So what I got, I went to O'Reilly's, and I think these were each about $8 a can. So I have Duplicolor engine enamel with ceramic, and I have flame-proof paint here. So this says the flame-proof says anywhere from 1,300 to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to withstand. The Duplicolor says withstand heat up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Your plenum's not going to get to that point. It's not anything that's gonna. It's not going to get that hot. If your plenum's getting that hot, you have major issues, and the way your paint's going to look is going to be the least of your worries. So, without further ado, I'm going to wipe a little bit more of this brake cleaner that I did dry off. Make sure your area is completely dry. Like I saw that, it was the last second thing, and I'm glad I saw it, because that paint would have sat on top of that liquid, and it would have just sat there, and it wouldn't have actually got adhered to the surface. So I'm going to start off with I'm actually going to start off with the orange base. Match the Z, which you can't really see anymore. But can says here, fair surface, blah, 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 mask off areas. We already did that. Shake can for 1 full minute, and hold can 8 to 10 inches away. That's about standard across the board. Every can's gonna be 8 to 10 inches away. You just don't want to soak your product too much to where it's just gonna be super thick and not. I'm touching this with greasy fingers, which I shouldn't be. Shame on me. But you don't want your product to start running. That's why I say 8 to 10 inches away. So shake. All right. So now that our can is shaken up well, 8 to 10 inches away, gonna do one smooth, simple coat of the orange. Honestly, I don't know if I'm gonna stick with the orange. I might just spray over it with black and completely say screw this idea. But if I go farther with it, you're gonna see what I'm gonna do with it. So I'll start with the first coat. First coat is gonna be a light coat. You don't want it on too thick. It's gonna start running. You want it light. Light, even coats is what you want whenever you're painting anything. When you're spraying, guys, make sure that you're starting. I don't know if you can see my finger really well here. You're starting at the end of something and spraying through it before you release. You don't want to start spraying here and end spraying here. Spray through. You're going to get an even coat that way. If I start spraying here and end spraying here, it's going to end up having thicker sides on each where it start and stop. So you just want to go all the way through, being a little dramatic with it so you guys can get the idea. See how I'm spraying through? I'm not just starting at the end and ending at the end. Make sure we get even coats on our sides too. Alright, I'm going to show you guys this a little bit closer. So, as you can see here, it's splotchy, it's not all the way through. Doesn't matter, this is the first coat. First coat is a light coat, it's an even coat. All of these splotchy areas are going to go away. When you see where, like right here, it's not as dark, doesn't have as much orange on it, it's going to go away. Don't worry about it. Don't try and soak it to where it gets this dark. I got a little bit too much here. Where it gets super dark spots. Don't worry about making sure everything is that color and it's all solid in the first go. You want even coats. I'm going to let that dry about 5 minutes before I give it the second coat. Alright, now that we've given it about 5 minutes time to cure, we're going to do a second coat, which I was already shaking the can. I'm giving it another shake before I start spraying, but off camera while it was drying, I shook it a little bit more. If you're letting your can sit for a little bit of time, definitely just give it some more shakes. You want to keep that paint blended because it's got certain chemicals in it that need to keep going. That's why you got to shake your can to begin with. Shake it a little bit more. Second coat, it's going to be slightly heavier, but still not heavy. This is the coat where you're going to see a lot of those splotchy areas, the areas that weren't hit, they're going to get filled in and you're going to start seeing pretty much full color everywhere. Get the sides, can't forget those. Plenum's got a lot of angles to it, so make sure you get all of your angles. You might have to turn the can this way, that way, and let's say I have it upside down, eventually it's going to stop spraying spray, and all it's going to have out is aerosol. So, just hold it upright for a second, and you're going to get that hose primed again, so you can spray a little bit more upside down. Try and get these bolt holes for the center of the plenum. Just be careful when you're doing your spritzes, guys, because you can get it too thick really quick. Get a better angle here. Alright, so I'm going to show you what we're working with now. Now that we have even coverage, you can see some places look a little bit more wet, which is fine. It's not ideal, but it's just showing that I didn't get perfect coverage all the way across. But that's fine. You're not seeing your splotchy areas where it's not filled in anymore. This is a good second coat. We're going to wait another 5 minutes, and we're going to come back with a third and final coat to make it look nice, thick, and deep, and have even color all the way across. Alright. So another 5 minutes passed, and we're going to do our third and final coat on the plenum for this color. And I'm going to explain why I'm saying this color. You can stop here after this third coat, but I'm going to show you another trick and something else that's going to be really, really cool and make your car stand out, or your car, or hell, if you want to paint your wheelbarrow, whatever you want to paint, stand out a little bit more than the next person. But we're going to do our third and final coat. This is going to be a heavy coat. I don't mean saturated. You're not going to sit here in one area, but you're going to get nice, thick, and full coverage all the way across the board on your plenum or your valve covers or whatever you're painting. Make sure it looks nice. Remember, don't go overboard with this, because you start getting runs in your paint. It's going to take a lot of time to get those runs out. You're going to have to strip it and start all the way over. So even though you want a thick coat, it honestly might even better if you know yourself well enough to know if you're going to go overboard and you're going to start getting runs. Stop yourself, do 4 coats, 4 thin coats, you're going to get the same result. Now look at that. Everything looks wet to the touch, but it's still not running. That's a nice 3rd coat of paint. And I really like the way that this orange is looking. I was hoping it was going to turn out good. And I think it's a pretty good match to the car. So we're going to stop there, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with the last bit before I get there. You can stop here with whatever color you want, but I'm going to show you something else to pop it, give it a little more pop, make it look a little bit better, make it look more unique, like it's your car. All right, so now that we have our paint cured overnight, one of the things you can do to test it to make sure that it is fully cured to where this next step isn't gonna mess anything up, take a piece of tape, and just have electrical tape and go to an inconspicuous spot, stick it on there, pull it up, and no paint came with it. So that's fully cured. Now to bring it to the next level, I have a sticker here that I'm gonna put on here, and then I'm gonna spray over top of it and then peel it off, so I'll leave the orange underneath. You can do this with any of your favorite decals from favorite brands or anything. I have my own decal cutter, so I made my own personalized one, which if you know anybody who has a decal cutter, you can do the same thing. Just get that on there where you want it. Lay it on. If you wanted to leave just the silver underneath too, you could put the decal or the sticker on before you spray the base color, but I use the base color orange. I'm going to put the decals over top and then spray it with the black. I think it's going to give it a good look. Alright, now that we have all of our decals that we want on, I'm gonna make sure they're pressed down real good so you're not getting paint underneath of them and any of the wrinkles or anything. Since this is just a stencil, a wrinkle's not a big deal, but at the same time, you don't want paint getting under it. Alright, now I think that's gonna look sick. Alright, now we have our second color and final color to spray over top of everything. It's gonna be the same steps. Just first coat, very light. Gonna do 3 coats again, guys. First coat's light, second coat's light, and third coat's gonna be a little bit heavier. Same thing as we did with the orange. Spraying the same way. Start, go across, stop, let go. Alright, look at that guy. Guys, again, it's a light coat. You can see where it's splotchy in certain areas. It's okay. We're going to get those filled in with the second coat. The third and final coat will seal everything in. So let's get that to sit for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back, get the second coat on. So now it's been 5 minutes. Come back with coat number 2. Is where we shouldn't really see any splotching by the time this coat's done, but it's still a thin coat. Alright, second coat is done. Another 5 minutes and see where it is for coat number 3. Alright, coat 2 is dry. It still looks a little wet, just where it's thicker. So we're going to go ahead and put on the third and final coat. Remember, thicker coat. You're not trying to get any runs here, but it does need to be thicker. you feel like you're starting to get some runs or anything like that, slow down and just do another 2 lighter coats. If you haven't painted stuff a lot before, I do recommend just taking lighter coats, because you can't take off what you put on, but you can put on more. Alright, so now that we've sprayed that, the next thing we gotta do is remove our decals before this paint dries. That way it's not going to start flaking up. So this you're gonna do very, very carefully. I got a razor blade that I'm gonna use for this. I'm gonna get under the corner and peel it away. Very, very gently. Being careful not to touch any of the wet paint. Alright, so I got the outline done. Now for the lettering, this is probably going to be a little more tricky. If you wait for this to dry, which certain paints will let you do that, I'm honestly not sure about this paint, so I'm not taking any chances, but certain paints will start chipping up the corners of it, so you're not going to have any sharp edges like what we're going for here. There we go. Look at that. You can now if you want. I don't mind getting my fingers with sticky paint on them, but you start peeling off your other masking. You can wait till it fully cures because you're not worried about the corners where it got masked at all, because it's even if it does chip around the edges, it doesn't really matter. Another couple up here. There's some on the bottom. I'm not going to worry about those. These 2 in here, I'm not going to worry about those until it completely cures, because I don't want to handle this surface at all and lift it up and flip it over, because that's just going to ruin everything that you just did with your paint. I'm going to put the camera back up here so I can use both hands. Alright, so I think we're going to let this sit for another 24 hours, but that'll be a wrap for this episode. Thanks for watching.